The people that are joining us today have probably seen this before. This is our homepage on our Emory Healthy Aging website. And this is always something I lead with again, because if you want to get involved, like I said, it's all online. You can do it off of your computer, your iPad, even off of your cellular phone if you wanted to. Although generally we recommend you use an iPad or a computer just for a little bit of a better experience. But this big yellow button up here actually walks you through that process. But once you've gone through that, and if you have questions or anything about that, I will drop my information into the chat box here in a moment so that you can contact me directly. But what I really wanted to talk a little bit more about here was the Emory Healthy Brain Study. And this is such a unique initiative because we are not looking at this from like a drug trials perspective. We are looking for healthy individuals that do not have a diagnosis of MCI, do not have Alzheimer's already, and are really between the ages of 50 and 75. And the goal for this project is we're looking for the biomarkers that are going to allow us to predict who will develop Alzheimer's and other types of dementia. And so I want to showcase this page specifically because when you go to our main page here, under our sub-studies, you'll see we have the Emory Healthy Brain Study itself. And on this page, we have a ton of information. More specifically, we have information about, how we're using some of this research. We give you a really quick breakdown of what are the four main steps. How do you actually get involved with the study? And like I said, this usually starts with the aging study. If you are really, really interested, again, I'm going to put my contact information in there, and you feel free to reach out to me directly as well. We have worked with some individuals who want to get in. We are able to screen them with some of our clinical research coordinators and actually kind of do both the Emory Healthy Aging and the Healthy Brain Study together, since we're collecting just information on that first part. But one of the really cool things that I wanted to showcase here is these two sections down at the bottom of the page where we talk about the study tests and procedures. So unlike the aging study where you are just doing an online health history questionnaire, the brain study, we are asking participants to come in and work with us to go through some testing and procedure and some sample collections. So things like blood draws, cognitive testing, lumbar puncture, and a vascular assessment are all things that are part of the study. Now we are changing things a little bit because of COVID-19. So we're actually doing a lot of the things that can be done remotely, such as cognitive testing. We now have the capacity to do that in a virtual environment if you would like to do that instead. And we're also doing now MRIs. And one of the cool things about collecting all of these different things, we got a question earlier about the cognitive test results and whether or not that was going to be released. While generally we don't release a ton of the information that's collected because it's done in a research setting and not so much as a clinical setting, what we've actually started to do now, though, is make some of these different test collection numbers available. So for example, as we're doing these vascular assessments and recording this data for research, we're actually now in a position where we are able to share that information with you, available into the portal, your personalized portal, where if you wanted to take that to your primary care provider and learn more about that, you're able to do so now. We're also able to give you a really cool picture of your brain if you go through the brain study and actually complete your MRI. And for those that may be unsure about some things, we actually worked with several of our different participants to go through, and actually they agreed to get on camera, which, believe it or not, more people are afraid of public speaking than they are dying. So the fact that these folks were able to join us with us and not only complete the Healthy Brain Study, but go through and provide us some really cool testimonial videos and talk about their experiences, we want to make sure that anybody that's interested in participating has these resources available to them, or if you have questions, that we're there to answer any of those questions for you.
Okay, and Laterica, you joined us this week. I don't know, could you just talk about like the depth and breadth of the study? I mean, I think there's over 40 staff involved in this study.
Yes, so, and I'm actually going to take us back here to our homepage just to kind of give you a little quick overview of just some of the affiliated researchers. So we have a lot of people And these are just affiliated researchers that we have. We've also got a very large list of partnered physicians that work with us, previous partnered physicians. We've got a lot of published research that's coming out. And then just alone on the study staff with my team and the rest of the folks that I get to work with on a day-to-day basis, there are a lot of people involved in this project, and for a good reason though. This is an ambitious project. We're really shooting to get about 3,300 people involved with the Emory Healthy Brain Study. And we're excited now because we've broken that 1,000 mark, and that's a really big milestone for us. But we didn't get there by, not telling people about it, not really pushing to make sure everyone has the available resources. The reason we're there is because of all these different people coming together, and whether it's making sure that samples are processed correctly or that our visits are run really smooth, or the work that Laterica and Chloe do all the time. There is a whole lot of teamwork that goes into making this study a reality, and it's really exciting to see how far that we have already become.
So is it possible for someone to participate in Healthy Brain without having the lumbar puncture?
So at this point, I don't think so. And there's a very special reason for that, because the lumbar puncture is a specific type of sample that we are collecting that is unlike anything else. That cerebral spinal fluid bathes our brain constantly, and Dr. Law has referred to it in the past as kind of like the holy grail of samples for Alzheimer's disease research, because that fluid that's bathing our brain is not found anywhere else really. And so the information that we're able to glean from that collection there is very important. Now, what I will say is some of the differences on how we do lumbar punctures versus how you might have a lumbar puncture done in the clinical environment is that because we're in a research environment, we've had years to really put this process together and really seek to make it as comfortable for our participants as possible. One of the big things about that is being able to take our time and understanding that our staff, they are doing these procedures every single day of the week on a weekly basis. They have a lot of experience in doing it. We use smaller needles than you typically found in use for a clinical environment. And like I said, we're able to really take our time, make sure that our participants are very comfortable. And honestly, after our post-survey results come through with the majority of our participants, 75% of the people actually think cognitive testing is the hardest part about a research visit.
And not the lumbar puncture, but the cognitive testing.
Cognitive testing. It's definitely, it's something that is definitely a big source of anxiety and concern. And, obviously we want to make sure that any of our participants fully understand that everything that we're doing here is completely voluntary. You're not forced to do any of these things. And if it's something that makes you, uncomfortable, you decide not to do that, that is entirely up to you. And that won't affect your level of care anywhere else at Emory. But at the same time, we also want to make sure that, we are taking the steps possible to make this as comfortable and easy for you as can be. And that the majority of our participants that have come through and worked with us actually realize that it wasn't as bad as they made it seem.
Okay, 2 more questions, and then I'm going to pivot to Dr. Parker and Dr. Goldstein for closing remarks. But what's the difference between healthy brain and healthy aging? And then tell us about the age requirements.
Great questions. So the way I'll break it out is I like to describe it as everything kind of starts with the Emory Healthy Aging Study. So the aging study, if you think of it, is broken into 2 main pieces here. We ask our participants to do an online health history questionnaire. It takes most people about 30 minutes to do it, and we ask you questions about your diet, your daily lifestyle, your habits, demographic information, things like that. And we use that information to monitor year over year patterns that might emerge, or look at different data points to see if we can better understand the cause of certain age-related diseases. But what we also use that data for is to look for individuals that might be a good fit for the Emory Healthy Brain Study. So the age requirements, as we split them up, the Emory Healthy Aging Study is actually open to anybody over the age of 18 years old. For the brain study, since that is specific to Alzheimer's disease, we are looking for individuals about 50 to 75. Now, I say everything starts with the healthy aging study because right now, that is the primary means for us to identify individuals that might be a good fit for the brain study. That being said, we have worked with individuals before who are really, really adamant about being a participant in the brain study. And we've worked with them one on one to make sure that they are eligible first and to go through everything with them. And then when they decide, yes, this is something that I would like to do, we actually go ahead and just go through the health history questionnaire portion of the aging study and then move right along into the brain study.
Okay. And all right. So he's going to Laterica. They're going to put the link in the chat so that you can. Oh, okay. I'm reading more comments. What kind of testing is harder than lumbar puncture testing?
So the lumbar puncture, again, we're taking less than a teaspoon of fluid from the lower part of the lumbar. And actually what I'm going to do is I'll drop a video link in here to one of our YouTube videos that's specific to how does the lumbar puncture work, how do we do it, all the details about that. The cognitive testing is, for whatever reason, for most of our participants, the most challenging portion of it. I can personally speak, I have not done the lumbar puncture itself, but I am a healthy control in one of our studies, and I have gone through the cognitive testing battery, and I may have been a little arrogant going into it and thinking that it may not be that hard, and I was humbled at the challenge of it. There are definitely some elements there that are, I'm just going to say humbling.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Parker, you've done lumbar punctures. I don't know if you really want to just help sort of address people's concerns.
I think that the easiest thing that I can tell you with respect to a lumbar puncture, I mean, I don't like getting blood taken out of my arm just because I don't like getting stuck, but it's having a lumbar puncture in this day and age is pretty much like getting blood drawn from your arm. It pricks a little bit, but that's about all you'll feel. Because there's an anesthetic that we use to numb up the skin, you really don't feel anything. You're going to feel me when I stick the little needle in so that I can give you the Novocaine or the lidocaine. You're going to feel that. But the rest of the procedure, once I numb that area up, is not something that you're going to feel or you're going to experience. More importantly, the kind of spinal tap, because that's what everybody calls it, spinal tap or lumbar puncture that you might have experienced maybe 30 or 40 years ago where you got to lay down for hours and be in the hospital. We don't do that. That is not how we do that anymore. They have refined the procedure and gotten tools that make it much easier to secure cerebrospinal fluid. So for those of us who born children and let's say had an epidural, it's not like that at all. It's not like that at all. Again, getting a lumbar puncture is analogous to getting blood drawn from your arm. It's just we're taking fluid not from your arm, from a vein, but we're taking it from your spinal column. And again, there really is no major discomfort. If you don't like needle sticks, you're not going to like this, but I don't like needle sticks. But
and some people have an aversion to that term puncture. We say spinal tap. How long does it take?
Well, it depends. It really does depend. There are some people who have, okay, perfect example of what might take a little longer. If you are a little heavier, let's just say you weigh over 300 pounds, it may take a little longer for us to get a lumbar puncture or a spinal tap completed in somebody that size versus somebody who's 125 or 150 pounds, simply because there's more tissue that the apparatus or the needle, the spinal needle, needs to get through before we hit the target. So being excessively oversized makes a difference. And then the other thing that can be complicating is if people have severe spinal curvature like kyphosis and arthritic spines may make the process take a little bit longer, no less risky than anything else, but it may take a little bit longer. So in general, when I've done them, we find the right spot. It's about 15 minutes to 30 minutes, depending upon where things are located. But the other thing is how fast your cerebrospinal fluid flows. Think, well, I'm from New England, so this is my analogy. If you're tapping a maple tree for sap, you stick in the aperture such that you can get the sap out of the tree. And however long it takes for that sap to run, that's how long it takes to get the cerebrospinal fluid. We're not drawing like on a vacutainer, like we're drawing blood. We're just letting kind of like gravity pull it into the tube. Just depends upon how quickly things flow for you and how much fluid you had ahead of time. But again, it's no more painful or uncomfortable a procedure than having blood drawn from your arm. We're just drawing fluid from a different site.
And does someone need to drive an individual home after this procedure?
No, no. You need to have somebody drive you home when you've been anesthetized, when you've had your eyes dilated, and you are unable to operate your car and other things as you have before. There is nothing in a lumbar puncture that prevents you from driving effectively. Let's see, how long is the process from check-in to check-out? As I said, every individual is different depending upon your size and how fast your cerebrospinal fluid runs, how steady and how secure is the study database. All of our personal health information is encrypted, and there's no way somebody just coming in will get your personal health information because you came to participate in our study.
And one thing there on our information on how we keep everything stored is the data is also de-identified. So we do not store personal health information along with identifiable information for you.
Right, and that's an important piece. The other thing that's important for you to know is that any of your research information, just like an earlier question that came for Dr. Goldstein, do we get the results? Information that we obtain during research is for research only. It is not something that gets attached to your medical record. Being extreme, if, for example, you were in a study to evaluate, let's say, HIV status or sexually transmitted diseases, and you didn't think you had anything, but you did find out that as a result of the research study, you were infected, is that going to show up on my medical record? No, the results of the research study will not show up on your research records, but when we direct you to get to your doctor to get treated for this, that will show up on your medical record.
Okay. And so Dr. Goldstein, who you all, if you don't know, I want to just let you know you're having this awesome engagement with an individual who has developed a lot of these instruments when it comes down to the cognitive testing. So she is a guru. She's not going to say that, but we have such a phenomenal team. Dr. Goldstein, how do we help people reduce their anxiety when it comes down to cognitive testing? Like, first of all, we don't like tests, but then you're going to tell me about my memory, and there's so much trepidation there.
Right, and it is very challenging, and particularly when people have a family history and then they get in the testing and they think they're not doing well. You know, it's not pass fail, it's really, and also wanted to mention, we do make it challenging, but that's done on purpose, because if we made it so easy, then we wouldn't be able to measure change over time. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to really push you. You all are in the Healthy Brain Study are in it because you have normal cognition, and you were selected because we want to follow you down the road. So yeah, it's going to be challenging. You're not going to do 100%, and but that allows us to follow you over time. It is nice. It's a one-on-one situation. It's in a quiet room with one of our well-trained research techs. And really, some people enjoy certain parts of it. And I've told us they found it to be fun and challenging, and just like they were back in school. So I hope that we can allay any fears you have, and just know that it's really just to establish a baseline. And that not everybody's going to do perfectly. No one does, actually.
Okay. All right. Well, you all were sticking around, so we just continued with this session. This wasn't planned, so thank you so much for all of your questions. Dr. Parker, do you want to tell everybody what we have in store for next week?
Oh, yes. Next week, I am super, super excited because we will have with us Dr. Risa Sperling, who is the main national director of the A4 study, which is the study that perfected the drug that's soon to be marketed for treatment of Alzheimer's, aducanumab. We call that study the A4 study. Some of you on this call have been a part of that study. So Dr. Risa Sperling from Harvard Medical Center will be a part of that call. Dr. Hiroko Dodge from the Oregon Health Sciences University will be with us to talk about social isolation and its effects. You heard about social isolation today. We did have a study, and I think we still have a study that has to do with social connection and reversing isolation. And the third person that we will have as a part of this call will be Dr. Ann Barrett, who is now, who's a physical medicine and rehab doctor who is now part of our cognitive empowerment zone, but she also leads the Center for Visual Neural Research at the Atlanta Veterans Administration Hospital. So we have some very engaging, very important clinical researchers that are going to be on the call next week. So you want to know about the drug that prevents Alzheimer's, aducanumab, you want to talk to Dr. Risa Sperling, and she's going to be our guest next week.
All right, so I see a couple of comments again saying the lumbar puncture was a breeze. The cognitive testing was a beep. So again, we're a research center. We appreciate you guys for hanging with us on this Tuesday. Happy fall. Be on the lookout for the PowerPoints and the recordings. And we can't wait to see you next Tuesday. Goodbye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.